The cars are not overpowered. You are underskilled.
Saying adapt to the competitive players, who are the players who understand the game the most, to the deepest level.
I just got killed in 3 seconds by a vehicle, and I didn't have a car to run away, so I died.
Nobody could give their advice on competitive if you play fucking pubs.
A lot of you comp players sound corny. You're corny. If you don't like the season, I'm not here to argue with your personal preference.
I'm not playing. I'm not playing. I'm not playing anymore.
That is so OP. I'm going to show you just how OP it is.
They don't play Fortnite for fun like casual players do. They play Fortnite to win.
One thing that I have to say about the loot pool is that I actually commend Fortnite for keeping the majority of Season 1 and 2's weapons up to this point. Fortnite normally has a huge habit of introducing a set of weapons one season, and then when a new season is about to start, after everyone gets used to those weapons, they just get replaced by an entirely different loot pool that only serve as knockoffs of the obligatory pump shotgun, auto shotgun, fast firing AR, and slow firing AR. There are weapons that I was 100% sure would vanish out of thin air, like the DMR, Warforged AR, and the rest of the Greek inspired weapons, but I was pleasantly surprised to see that these weapons were given more time to simmer in the loot pool. However, my main issue lies within the assault rifles. 2 out of the 3 assault rifles are absolute dog shit this season. The tactical AR somehow made the cut, and for some depressing reason, the Enforcer AR came out of purgatory to haunt the AR selection, only leaving the Warforged AR as the only decent AR. What makes matters worse is when the long-awaited return of the combat AR occurred, it unfortunately swapped places with the Warforged instead of replacing any of the 2 shitty ARs. I speculate Epic did this to make the AR selection not viable for the most part, since this season heavily relies on cars, thus encouraging players to strictly utilize the turret or grenade launcher attachments. As mentioned in my initial thoughts of the season video, I am a big fan of the combat shotgun's return, and I think it fits perfectly this season. These guys hit hard, and I'm glad they're back.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Map design in Chapter 5 Season 3 is very strong. Map changes are normally a bipartisan topic for the most part when it comes to the community's thoughts, especially this season. This season has 6, or if you want to be technical, 9 biomes, thus making Chapter 5 the map with the most biomes in Fortnite history. I would have been sorely disappointed if the Underworld biome or Olympus got jeopardized, but there was just enough room for the Desert Albuquerque Breaking Bad biome. The Middle Lake from previous seasons is now drained to knee level, sporting geysers and shield cacti, eventually being taken over by the Pirates of the Caribbean collab, and I actually find this a good change since it didn't change too drastically to the point where you can't recognize the lake, but enough to put a spin on it. Brutal Beachhead and Redline Rig are relatively fine POIs, with Nitrodrome being my favorite of the bunch. The way you can essentially cut through an entire POI in a straight shot is pretty unique. This place harnesses the chaos of the season completely, not counting this gas station in this area right here. However, Sandy Steps is the weakest link. Those who are confused, Sandy Steps used to be a fairly good POI known as Snooty Steps that was a massive hot drop in Season 1, and could be seen as the Tilted Towers of Chapter 5 for a time, maybe aside from Lavish, Fencing, and Reckless, but given that this place had variety with similarities to Tilted with tall buildings, and the hype of housing the Peter Griffin boss and the Mythic Pump Shotgun, this was a bustling POI. Then it got neutered in Season 2 since Peter and the Medallion got taken out, then it was circumcised in Season 3 because now it fell off. I bring this all up because POIs that used to have medallions inevitably become weaker over time since we just get new medallions and new mythics every season.
Where do the years go?
And on the topic of medallions, for some reason, medallions continue to get stronger every season, and that's not necessarily a bad thing if all the medallions had the same effect like in Season 1. Unfortunately, Epic decided to double down on their habit of making some medallions objectively better than others, thus making certain POIs a necessity to land at. Although this season does add a slight twist on medallion locations by having some games have a convoy of vehicles moving around the map with the medallion bosses. I do like this idea better than being restricted to one POI, but the issue is still at large of having broken medallions. While the Machinist medallion grants you shield over time like Season 1, Megalodon's medallion and the Ringmaster's medallion takes it a step further by essentially making you an unstoppable being. After killing Ringmaster, you not only get the mythic boom bolt, which is insanely busted at the cost of eating rockets, but also the infinite ammo medallion, which negates the ammo issue, makes it so players are being rewarded with a spammy explosive weapon that can be used forever and ever, which you can only get at Nitrodrome and just Nitrodrome. Like, it's reached a point where each season makes me appreciate the previous season's medallions despite their flaws. Like, okay, medallions in Season 1 were cool, but kinda busted, especially on launch, but alright, we'll move past it. Wow, Season 2's medallions are even more busted, but at least the Infinite Dash medallion has to recharge over time, but alright, we'll move past it. Well, now that shit gets thrown out the window with the Infinite Nitro medallion, which by the way is only available to one person on the map. Speaking of Nitro, Fortnite over the years has butt heads with the building feature, whether intentional or not, by introducing items, mechanics, or vehicles. Naturally, people who aren't proficient at building see these as good additions because they find them fun, which is valid, but they also get a chance at a few free kills or even a victory royale. Instead of admitting this insecurity, the outspoken people in the community use the fun factor as justification for its rocky implementation. This season is no different. The Nitro feature on launch allowed players to have unlimited stamina for a short amount of time and negate all fall damage while under the effect. And at first glance, this doesn't seem too unorthodox since we've had side effect abilities in the past. However, this ability takes it further by allowing players to sprint and break through walls entirely, whether it's natural structures or people's boxes, essentially becoming a human cowcatcher. It doesn't end there either, because if you manage to sprint against someone, you shove them into the air, dealing damage. It's funny because despite how crazy this is, people actually really like its implementation, and would go as far as replying to people who aren't a fan of the feature by making outlandish claims like stop spam building.
The Fortnite players who are supposed to be the best at the game continue to prove their ineptitude to do anything but put themselves in a box and expect that to work.
What's that supposed to mean?
Nitro is at a better place due to nerfs, which I will go over. Something that's not at a better place is the gauntlets, which act as the mobility item this season. However, the offensive component of this item takes it a step further by having a punching cycle that doesn't seem to have a cooldown whatsoever, and at launch, this could go through builds like nothing. The thing about the kinetic blade and the TMNT mythics is that the attack animations were slow enough to warrant its damage, but you can't say the same thing about the Nitro Fist. Zero talent is required when using them. You essentially need to stare in someone's direction and spam click. Oh wait, I stand corrected. You don't need to look in someone's direction. In fact, you can actually be below someone and still get a free kill. Oh wait, I stand corrected again. You can actually get a free kill by clicking in the opposite direction of someone. I have seen shitty rebuttal after shitty rebuttal for both Nitro Fist and the Nitro Splash, and they both share the same ones like just shoot them, shotgun to the face. Well, you see, one person actually has to aim to win the fight while the other person doesn't, so there is no world where that is fair.
It's been a year, Daddy.
You are done!
Car combat is fun, but it is not balanced. The twist of having cars as a prominent component of the season is fine. What this season does is that it makes people play like absolute baboons. It rewards cowardice. Like, look at this shit, man. This was ranked before loot pools got split. Car chases last for centuries to the point where you're better off just giving up on people that you get to 1 health. You see, that's the problem. There's too many get out of jail free cars this season, and since cars before the season were a get out of jail free car to some degree, it's quite obvious why this season cranks it up to 1 million because it's car centric. You know, it's the weirdest oxymoron for me, because if you play into the bullshit and play like a puss, it's brain dead fun filled with so much content, especially when compared to every other season this chapter, but it's also the most aggravating shit of all time for solos or when my friends and I don't want to play GTA Online. You can like something, but that doesn't mean it's objectively good, like gambling. You know what, I actually lied. Gambling is based and valid, keep doing it. I shouldn't really have to explain why the car meta doesn't take any skill, especially before the nerfs, but for the sake of argument, I'd like to point out that there was a noticeable influx of clips or instances of teaming this season, because one of the shoulda woulda couldas that professionals would try to preach to people was to jump in people's cars, but that inevitably leads to teaming. I'm not one to complain about third-partying and how cheap it is. I actually used to have the opposite opinion, but since you drive across the map 10 times faster this season, one car can third-party a fight, which causes a bigger fight, then more cars come over and more and more and more, and that shouldn't happen in a season. You shouldn't be punished for fighting someone in a battle royale. That's not a good model for a season. You know, it gets old after a while. Cars are fine now ever since the nerfs took place, but there's so many issues still plaguing this season, and as much content as there is, I can't move past this. You can't abandon your fundamental gameplay and building. I cannot ethically go over this season without talking about the persistent flinging of shit from both casuals and comp players. Now, for some reason, some people unironically loved how the season originally started and thought it was perfect. You know, boss cars regenerating health and being able to 200 to 0 people instantly, but something needed to be fixed.
I think this is the first time where we've had like a super divided fan base on the season, because a lot of casuals were like, oh, this season is incredible, one of the best they've ever made. Comp players despised it, right?
I don't care if you're a casual or a competitive player. If you die and you feel like there's nothing that you could have done, that's not okay for a battle royale game. I don't care what kind of player you are. Like, you should always have an escape or an option or something that you could have done to avoid whatever it is that you're getting fought with.
The first course of action from Epic was to bring back the Boogie Bomb, and after all the shit talking, all the adapt nonsense, ultra casuals hated the season, even saying that it was unplayable. So the game that you were just playing right before the Boogie Bomb came back, that was playable and this isn't? Yep.
My biggest issue is they don't know what audience they're trying to appeal to.
You know, I wasn't playing as much because the whole thing that really made this season feel like something new and refreshing was gone by the end of it, or really halfway through.
I feel like there are just way too many counters for everything this season, and to the point where it doesn't even feel like you should use the cars or the fists anymore because there's so many counters to them.
In the grand scheme of things, it would seem pretty hard to figure out why Epic decided to nerf everything. Was it because the community was complaining? Or was it because Epic realized how broken these things were?
Oh no, it was 100% the complaining. Like, I don't think Epic would have done anything if, like, Clayx and all the pros weren't like, man, these things suck, they're so broken, and like half of freaking Twitter was on fire. So, you know, if there was no complaints, I think Epic would have kept it in.
As much as I was having fun with the cars at the beginning of the season, they had to be nerfed. There was no way they would keep that for the whole season.
I feel like Epic knew that they were going to have to nerf everything eventually.
Casual players will literally just say, oh, just adapt. It's not that simple. Like, this is a big gameplay change. This isn't just like some new gun or like, this is like unlike anything we've had, maybe kind of like the mechs.
You watch some of these clips where it's like, it's just absolute chaos, and it's like, how is this fair?
This song and dance happened before all the way in Season X with the mechs. When Epic announced that the mechs were going to get nerfed since people complained, they stated that there's going to be a laser to tell players when the mech is about to start shooting. But the laser was already a part of the mech the whole time but didn't have a function.
The laser, like I said, it was planned with the mech's like launch, but if they add it right away, it's something that they can't later apply to the mech. And then, like, by comparison, yeah, it's worse, but like it's still broken. It's just where they wanted it to be, but because it was so much more broken before, now they can have the intended values in the game, and it's harder to complain about. You know, it's a complete, like, it's almost gaslighting to an extent. It's so sad that it works on so many people.
It took a long time, but eventually the loot pool was finally split and ranked. This is a great move on Epic, but the damage was already done. Most people switched over to Reload or stopped playing the season entirely. Why do they have to wait that long? Why do they have to test it that long?
I definitely think that they should have split the loot pool from the start.
I mean, the only thing that came from it was the discourse, and now, like, the competitive and casuals pretty much just, like, mutually hate each other, so I don't think it did anything productive having it in the ranked loot pool first.
It's just because they want people to, like, have a similar experience, and it's like, but it's not supposed to be the same, and that should be, like, the promotion behind it. It's very ironic because, like, the whole idea of, like, the metaverse was having, like, a platform of, like, different experiences. And it seems like everything that's Battle Royale, it's all the same.
Like, they can have the broken stuff, just, like, don't put it in competitive because it doesn't end well for anyone.
I think no matter what is said, it will always be greeted with people that spout the brain-dead nostalgia blind argument, but I think what those people need to realize is that it's not. A lot of people want this game to do good and not change things just to change them.
You know, some people love change. Some people hate change. For me, I love change, but it has to be positive change. It has to be change that moves us forward, not backward.
Like, the whole changing the formula, it's like, that doesn't really equate to a good season. Like, there are so many seasons that get heavily shit on for making changes that actually change the game's formula, but it's not in a good way, right? Like, you have to have the execution. You have to uphold, like, different parts of the game's identity. Like, you can appeal to just change, but it's like, at the end of the day, that's not a very healthy thing for the game if the rest of the game suffers.
When that does happen, it's not really frustrating, it's just kind of disappointing.
And with all the arguments from both sides, the long Twitter threads, the streamers raging, the rant videos, the long debates, who's in the wrong?
To be honest, there aren't any, because both people are right. Like, even though we're all playing the same game called Fortnite, the way that a comp player views this game is so different from someone who's a casual player. And they're both right. Like, they both want what they want, and they're both totally valid to want that. Like, if you're a casual and you love the cars, that's awesome.
You are allowed to like or dislike any season that you want. Like, naturally, these seasons are not going to appeal to everyone, but that doesn't make it a good season just because you found it to be enjoyable.
The funniest part, or more accurately, the tragic part about this entire season, is that now, no one is happy. You know, God forbid we have another situation like this, but if we do, is anything good going to get accomplished?
So hopefully they're able to split the loot pool, and if they're not, then it's going to be the same thing as this season, except probably worse, between like the battle between the casuals and the competitive players, you know, just arguing with each other.
I think a lot of people just like to hate each other.
All rise.
Epic Games. Why do you guys like to overcomplicate things? Epic knows what they're doing. It's impossible to go through multiple months of playtesting and development without anyone realizing that one side of their community would be completely unsatisfied, leaving them to either ridicule opposing fans or to be ridiculed by opposing fans. Casual, competitive, and everyone in between shouldn't be at each other's throats to this degree. Fortnite shouldn't have waited this long to split the loot pools. The idea of trying to have pubs and competitive to be as close as possible sounds good on paper if pubs were balanced. Honesty is one of the most noble traits in life, and making content based around a topic of a season like this is ever more important. Ninja has flaws and will never be perfect and be near his prime in terms of skill and viewership, but I will commend him publicly for calling the season ass with a grin on his face. While Season 1 and Season 2 have their own issues, they have nowhere near the amount of forced ugly playstyles, unhealthy community backlash, and terrible metas. And you will always have people sitting, watching these clips, spew nonsense defending this. Your season is objectively bad if you can't tell if you died by a good or bad player. Your season is objectively bad if 2 out of the 3 assault rifles are practically useless against cars. Your season is objectively bad if you are forced to use a crutch item like the Nitro Fist. Even if it's fun, it's not well made if you are conditioned to run away from fights constantly. Epic Games. You are to blame. Look, I stated before that this season is a huge oxymoron for me, but if I'm looking at it objectively, I have to give the season a 3 out of 10. Run me over with a Fortnite car if you want, but considering that I am a casual and how this season wasn't enjoyable for me or any of the ultra casual people that I played with constantly.
Dude, how'd they fucking ruin the game?
I think the red flags correctly point me in this direction. But with that being said, it's fine if you like it. I understand. I get it. This season feels like a trailer. We may not agree, but isn't that the beauty of opinions? More importantly, I want to thank all of these wholesome Chungus content creators for collabing with me. If you don't subscribe to them, I will downvote you. Also, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you learned a new perspective today. And with that being said, stay based and valid, have a wholesome day, and fly away today.